please eat up, please eat up. I'm so happy to do this next chat here, fireside chat, with my good fast friend, Andrea Deveau, regarding AI innovation and equity, shaping what comes next. And it's presented by a group, a coalition that I'm working with, which is Parents and Kids Safe AI Coalition. And it's Open AI, and so we welcome them on as a new partner. Let's put our hands together for them. Andrea Deveau is the managing partner of the Deveau Group and one of California's leading voices on technology and innovation policy. She has spent years working at the intersection of technology, public policy, workforce development, education, and consumer protections. And she previously served as the Vice President of State Policy and Politics at TechNet, where she led technology advocacy efforts across all 50 states on issues including privacy, security, education, energy, and the future of work. Today, Andrea is representing both OpenAI and the Parents and Kids Safe AI Coalition, a growing alliance of parents, educators, civil rights organizations, community leaders, child advocates, and tech leaders working to urge California lawmakers to pass the strongest AI child safety law in the nation in 2026. And I'm happy to say that we are part of that coalition. Andrea is thank you.
You're welcome.
Andrea, for being here and for helping lead this important conversation about AI. Innovation, equity, and community protections. Let's give a hand for our guest, Sister Deveau. Did I say it right? Andrea?
You got it.
Andrea Deveau. All right. So wonderful. So let me just ask you, tell me more about yourself. I read your bio, but what draws you to this work right here, Andrea?
I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess. I started my career actually, I've been in policy and politics for almost 30 years. I know it's shocking.
Sorry, you were 12.
Thank you. Yeah, we hadn't practiced that, but that's good. I have an almost 24-year-old daughter, Dominique. She's the reason I do everything. She's the reason I motivated in the morning to wake up and do the work that I do. But really and I won't take you through my entire career trajectory because most importantly is I'm here. The reason that I do this work is exactly what NAN stands for. Some people think lobbyist is a 4-letter word, and it's not. There are some, good and bad in every field, but my goal is to uplift, rising tide lifts all ships, right. And move forward with the right ethics, the right goals, and moving communities forward. And I've been able to do that through this platform, and that's really what keeps me motivated and dealing with the ins and outs of politics and policy and the frustrations, because we can do good work and we can move in the right direction for our next generation.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your work, and especially in this area
and
this field. So AI, that is like the biggest thing right now. I call it the new arms race, right?
Absolutely.
With AI and how things are moving in this space. It's moving incredibly fast, becoming part or has become a part of everyday life. How many of you use AI out there in anything, right? So it's everyday life for families and children, and Open AI could have chosen to stay on the sidelines.
Yep.
Of these policy conversations, but instead they're helping to launch this Parents and Kids Safe AI Coalition. Why was it important to step up publicly on child safety and community protections?
Well, I thank you for the question, and if anybody did not raise their hand when Dr. Porter asked the question of if you use AI, you should, because you do, and you probably don't know it. It is integrated into all of our lives, into every aspect of our lives, and whether it's in communication and work and access to information. The question around OpenAI's involvement here is a critical one, and it sort of goes back to the comment that I had made about a rising tide lifts all ships. Our mission is to make sure that we advance AI benefits for everybody. That building powerful tools is a great thing, but making sure people have access to the training and that there are guardrails. And if we aren't stepping up as a technology company and a leading voice in the AI innovation sector nobody else is going to. And so it is, along with communities and partners like you all in the room, like you, Dr. Porter, and all of the integrated community partners that we involve ourselves with, and it is about partnership. There are, and we'll get into this a little bit, I think, there are elements of appropriate policy that we are urging lawmakers to adopt this session, meaning this year in 2026, that do have guardrails. And not everybody likes that, right? I mean, from the technology industry's perspective, sometimes it's just, we'll figure it out, right? It's too difficult. The sky's falling if we, put too many parameters in place. There are appropriate and probably challenging guardrails that we can put in place, and we need to do that with communities. AI often, it feels that it's happening to us rather than with us, and that's our goal, is to change that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's important that we have guardrails because too often communities of color and working families are the last to benefit from new technology, but sometimes we're the first to experience the harms from it.
No
So
doubt.
how is OpenAI thinking about equity, access, and inclusion as AI becomes even more mainstream?
I'm glad you brought that up. I think the concern that you just described is very real, and communities have every reason to raise it. History shows that underserved communities often experience the risks of new technologies first and then receive the benefits last. Parents are already navigating, with the exception of just being a parent in today's world, navigating a digital world that's moving incredibly fast, faster than most families and schools and churches can keep up with. And so we can't allow children in communities of color to become the testing ground for these powerful technologies without the safeguards and accountability and transparency. There are a few elements that I want to touch on because I think equity is an opportunity, but it also needs to come with sort of some ground rules, and that's around opportunity, dignity, trust, and community control. With opportunity, AI should expand access to tutoring, job skills, entrepreneurship, and public private sector partnerships, small business support. Dignity, workers should be trained on AI as a tool that increases their agency, not treated as passive recipients, right? We need to understand how to use it and how to use it smart. Trust, to me, this is paramount, right? Families, educators, faith leaders, civil rights organizations will not embrace AI unless platforms are built with meaningful youth protections, and that is where we start with trust. And finally, community control. I mentioned AI adoption should be shaped with communities, educators, workers, small businesses, as I mentioned, and not imposed on them. And to me, that's the most critical. If you're not at the table, you don't trust the conversation that's happening, right? And that also means engagement from our communities. And that's what we love, the work that you're doing at NAN to help get the right people, you all in the room, to the table.
Yeah, and I think it's critical because when I was approached about working with you all, I was saying that there's a fear of AI right now, that we need to dispel. I think it's legitimate just from what we're saying, but I think the more we're exposed to it, the more we're aware of it, and the more conversations that we have of this helps us to dispel that fear. One thing I appreciate about this coalition is that it focuses on practical, enforceable protections, not just vague promises. What are some of the core safeguards the coalition is advocating for to better protect children and support parents? I believe we have another slide, policy principle slide that we could show in regards to that.
Yeah, no, this is sort of what I was getting at earlier is it's easy to talk, we need legislation, we need policy, right? We need regulation. It sounds simple and it sounds logical when you're actually rolling up your sleeves and trying to figure out what that looks like so that you strike that balance between not stalling innovation, but making sure the right protections are in place. That's very difficult. The thing that I'm encouraged about is that we're having the conversation, right? We were talking about, my new friend A in the back here, we were talking about social media and video games, and we're now sort of in this reactive mode, and I think we can learn from history and that we're having this conversation now so that appropriate guardrails can be put in place. To answer your question specifically, The coalition that you've mentioned, which we're very proud to be a part of at OpenAI, has set a core, like sort of common sense, enforceable policy principles that we believe any comprehensive AI child safety law needs to include. And this is what we are urging, along with all of the coalition members, that the legislators in California address this year. I'll go through them. There's also, I think, a little glossy in your
we have
packets.
a handout that
if
we
you want to
want
follow
you to
along.
check out. I think we have a slide for that. Could you go to the next slide?
Yeah, that'd be the second slide.
There we go.
I'll start walking through it, and I won't spend too much time, but these are the core principles. And again, this is the conversation that hasn't been had. Like, what are we actually going to do about this in law? Age assurance, right? AI companies should use age estimation technologies to distinguish children from adults and apply appropriate protections. If age cannot be determined, companies should default to protective safeguards. More is less in this situation. Parental controls. Parents deserve easy-to-use tools to manage privacy features, including alerts if a system detects a material risk of severe harm or self-harm. Protecting children from inappropriate and manipulative content. This is a big conversation right now and is, again, paramount to the principles that we need to see in law. So this includes safeguards against explicit or violent content promoting self-harm, and AI systems designed to create unhealthy emotional dependence or simulate manipulative relationships with minors. So this is sort of the emotional aspect of what we're seeing in some of the articles and unfortunate things that have been hitting the news.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Because I mean, there's horror stories about kids developing relationships with their AI folks that used to have invisible friends, right? But now the invisible friends
Mine was
become
named
more.
Sessa.
What's the name?
Sessa.
Sessa.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't have an invisible friend.
I don't know what that says about me, but something.
My invisible friend is Jesus.
There you go.
No, anyways, but in all seriousness, that when that manifests itself in the AI, that's really, really crazy, right? I mean, it could be really cruel and impactful on our children who are very susceptible
That's
to
right.
that
That's
stuff.
right. And not knowing then not knowing any better, right?
Right,
and so
right.
These principles are putting these guardrails, not to overuse that word, but it's true, in place so that we can trust that our children are being protected on the back end. We want to protect privacy and data, of course, and even more so with children's personal data. So leaning in there has to be accountability. And this gets to enforcement by the Attorney General, which comes with liability standards. But it sort of is that the push for this to be a requirement. That liability piece has to come into play. There's also things like audits, right? And that kind of gets to the transparency piece of this. And this is getting into the weeds a little bit, but it's not just a trust us, right? We're doing this. There's accountability, liability, and audits have a role in that.
Right, and I think it's important that it's a third-party audit right there, so that again, it's not just on AI to regulate itself. It's not self-regulation, but it's trying to be true to it and for the regulating of this new technology.
That's right.
Some people try to frame this as a choice between innovation and accountability. Why does this coalition reject this framing?
We outright reject this framing. We reject the idea that innovation only succeeds if there are no rules or guardrails. Not only is it the right thing to do, but families are far more likely to embrace technology when meaningful safeguards and accountability exists, the trust factor, right? And this means working with our policymakers. I mean, importantly, OpenAI is not just talking about innovation in the abstract. We're partnering with teachers' unions, workforce organizations, community colleges, labor groups, because they recognize the future AI economy has to include everyone. I want to give an example, and this isn't a promotion. I think it's just an example of how we all need to be better, and it comes to our partnerships. We have a partnership with American Federation of Teachers, or AFT, on an initiative to help train 400,000 educators on AI tools and curriculum support. It starts with our teachers understanding the tools and having the right training, not just throwing it at them, but building it with them, and then that filters down to our students. And this matters because teachers are going to shape the future of AI. And we need to not have them be sidelined by it. And so it's working together. So responsible innovation means making sure that the benefits of AI are broadly shared and developed responsibly and by as many individuals as possible.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So how do we be involved? How can we be involved in this? What role do you think faith leaders, such as myself, educators, civil rights groups, and community organizations should play in the shaping of the future of AI?
Great question. And honestly, I think it's one of the more important ones, and it's why I appreciate most about this Parents and Kids Safe AI Coalition is there's an actionable place for us to gather and rally with, and I know you're going to share some information about how to engage. And sometimes it's as easy as a +1, right, or a me too, and sometimes it's more than that. And I think what we can't have is not a point of coalescing. Otherwise, it's like, why are they going to listen to me, and how can they listen to me? And so, to answer your question, it is absolutely vital. This is a human issue. It's not just a technology issue, and that means that we need humans at the table. So I think bringing together the voices in this room, all of your networks and who you represent, and having that voice, and we're just a small part in trying to help that place, create a space, right, for that, for folks to come together.
Right. I mean, and we should be brought into this this room, this conversation. Like they say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So we're trying to get to the table.
That's right.
Amen.
Yeah. And we're trying to help set it.
Right.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about risks,
Yeah.
but there's also enormous potential here. What does it look like to make sure AI becomes a tool for economic opportunity, education, and upward mobility, especially for communities that have historically been left behind?
Absolutely. An incredibly important question, as they all are, Dr. Porter, and thank you for asking it. The future of workforce is going to require AI literacy, right? We need to first know what we're dealing with, and I think some of the things we had talked about, a few moments ago around children knowing what they're getting into, that comes with being literate, right? Like I know that I'm looking at something, and maybe this is not real, right? Just the intuition that will be built over generations, that's so important. But we're at this tipping point where it's our responsibility to actually drive that literacy. And so that is, I think, core to a lot of this, but there's also the fear, right? The fear of job displacement. And is there going to be a job for me, or is AI going to replace my role? I think about that too for my daughter and my family and folks, and looking at it not in a way of fear, but in a, yes, is AI going to replace jobs? Undoubtedly, right? But what new jobs are going to be created?
Right.
And how can we be a part of that? And I think it starts with literacy. So for example, for small businesses, AI can help with customer service, right? It can marketing, grant applications, proposal writing, operations, right? I run a small business. It can help you be more efficient, but it's not replacing a job.
Right.
In fact, some of it allows you to hire in other places, and I think that's something we need to think about.
True.
Repetitive tasks, it opens up pathways, for higher valued work and higher paying jobs. And I think also when you think about education, AI can help a student, whether it's translation, right? Learning challenges. They are incredible tools, but again, it all starts with understanding, and that is becoming literate, and I think that is a foundational need for us.
So true, and I think in order to make sure our kids are literate, we have to be literate, right? And we can't be, again, afraid of AI and jumping into that. And so we're grateful for the opportunity to learn it and to increase our literacy. So California often leads the nation on technology policy. Not just technology at large, right?
Absolutely.
We are the Silicon Valley. We are the leaders first and foremost on technology, innovation, and advancement. Why is this such an important moment for California to help shape what responsible AI looks like. Because it starts here. I've always said that when California sneezes, America catches a cold, right? And so it
Literally.
does start in California.
Yeah, I mean, it is important. And, you touched on a little bit of my background, which, at one point in time was advocating across all 50 states, right? I spent predominantly all of my time in California and sort of trickled into the states when, time allowed. And the reason for that was exactly what you said, right? What happens in California spreads east. And we are, our nation state, and, you hear that all the time. It is real. It is real when you're talking to policymakers. And so, California does have an incredible opportunity to shape national conversations around technology. And I think states look to us.
Yeah.
But if we don't do it, they're going to it's going to start to piecemeal, right? And so it's not only our responsibility to lead with intelligence and appropriate policy, it's our responsibility in some ways to make sure that the piecemeal that happens around the country is avoided, right? Because that makes it incredibly difficult when you have extreme policies impacting world economics and they're all different state by state. That's difficult. And companies have to make a decision which states they enter into based off of those policies. So it is existential right now that California develops this policy and does it right. And that's why we're urging the passage of appropriate children's safety laws this session, because the conversations are happening.
And what an opportunity for us to be at the
What an
forefront
opportunity.
of this. Right now, this new policy making possibility at this time to help shape safety measures for AI, especially for our children. As someone working in this space every day, what gives you optimism about the future of AI if we get this right?
Besides sitting here with you all, this is giving me optimism, I will tell you that. But I think one of the things that gives me the most optimism is that conversations are no longer happening in Silicon Valley boardrooms or research labs, right? They are happening in rooms like this with community leaders and civil rights advocates, educators, labor voices, people who understand what's at stake for real families and real communities. I spend a lot of time around technology policy. As you mentioned, I've learned that technology itself is rarely the whole story. The outcomes depend on who's at the table, like we've talked about, and helping shape it. And personally, I'm optimistic because I've seen people from different sectors, advocates, policymakers, companies, nonprofits, starting to recognize that we actually have a shared responsibility here. I think that's evidenced by the folks in the room and this conference and this even being a topic. So we have time to shape this thoughtfully, and it matters, and the time is now. So if we get this right, AI shouldn't replace humanity. It should help us scale the very best parts of humanity. And for me, that looks like creativity, problem solving, access, and connection. And I'm excited that we're working on this and a part of that.
Yeah. So listen, there's an ask that I want to make sure happened during this fireside chat, in this moment, where you can be involved, It's the next slide. It's the next slide here. We're building a coalition. In our previous panels, we talked about how there's power in coalitions and currency in that we are better together. You know that, right? We are better together. And so we want you to scan this code because we want parents, educators, faith leaders, community organizations that are here today and watching to help shape this conversation and advocate for responsible AI protections. Your voice matters. You know that, right? Your voice matters? Yes. And so we need you to sign up today as an advocate. You sign up to these principles of age assurance, parental controls, protect kids from inappropriate content, protect kids' personal information and data, annual risk assessment, independent third-party audits, strong enforcement. When I saw this, to me, it was an easy yes on it. People are always asking, what can we do? How can we make a change? This is how you do it. This is how you do it. You partner alongside the people who are doing the work. And when folks come to you saying, hey, we want you to be involved, we can't take that for granted. So I want you to go ahead, scan this QR code, and they can sign up here. When they sign up, what are they signing up for?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'll just reemphasize, I walk the halls of the state legislature every day. Usually I'm wearing flats. But our voice matters, but the reason that we can make the change is because we're empowered by our communities, and this is just an incredibly vital moment, as we've talked about. And so thank you for the consideration of joining along, and I think it's the avenue that we need.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So you joined this coalition of again, parents, educators, faith leaders, and community organizations to say that we want safe and protections for our children, right? And we need that for ourselves, and we just tell the truth, shame the devil, right? And so we want to make sure that we do that. So we want to encourage each and everyone to sign up as an individual or organization. California lawmakers need to hear the communities are paying attention and expect them to get this right, right? We need them to get this right, amen? All right, because this is a children's safety issue, a family issue. It's a civil rights issue. I believe it's a moral issue too, and it's a community issue, and our voice matters right here. So I want to thank you, Andrea, for really
pleasure.
joining us. Thanks to OpenAI. We're grateful. We got a little time left. I don't know if we want to open this up for questions or anything.
Depends
Got
on the question, but let's do it.
Right, right. But we got a little more time. Yes, sir. Can we get a mic down here? We could take. Let's have you stand, and then we'll. Yeah, you just take my mic.
Thank you. I work in education.
Great.
So one of the questions, or the only question I have, is what can schools do to safely integrate and incorporate AI? And then do you guys have like any type of curriculum
Yeah.
that we can look at? I work for Fortune School of Education, one of our schools, named
Yeah.
after our very own
Yeah.
CEO, Dr. Tecoy Porter. So I'd be very interested in just learning how schools can embrace AI appropriately and teach it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have, in fact, we'll sidebar too, and I'll make sure that you get my contact information. We do AI academies. OpenAI does this, and I know other companies do as well. They've been very successful. We've started as simple as, staff at the legislature. We just did our first community college AI academy. Where we're really focused is in the K through 12 space. And so I think it starts with training you as an educator. And by the way, thank you for what you do. But I think it starts with educators understanding, but also the students hearing directly on how to use these tools. And so, that's not the whole solution of an AI academy. I think curriculum is a separate conversation. But it's how do we use these tools in order to better their curriculum? But to the point I was talking about earlier is these tools can actually really help you as an educator, right? Some of the nuances, parent-teacher conferences, efficiencies, things like this, and there's tools to help relieve you of some of the things that you need to go through so that you can do what you need to do, and that's teach our students. So there's a lot more there, but happy to connect with you offline too. So, okay. Yeah, thank you.
Well, we got time for one more question. Yes. Stand. We have to. Here we go. Yes, ma'am. Right here. Mm-hmm.
I've spoken to a few educators, and one of the things that some educators have been worried about is everything being switched to being digital. Kids are losing critical skills, and that's making it more difficult for them to critically think and formulate their own understanding of problems. And we see with like younger kids, them not being able to regulate themselves correctly because everything is digital, the amount of screen time. Like, what are some of the protocols that have been put in place to sort of help kids build the skills that would be missing because of everything being digitalized, and sort of like help them continue to be able to critically think and formulate their own opinions with AI incorporated?
Yeah, it's a great question, and as a parent, I appreciate the question. I think a lot of the parameters and guardrails are what we're looking at today as part of pushing some of these policies. AI is not the answer for everything, but it's about the literacy piece, right? Like students, and when I say literacy, it's not like the words on paper. It's actually like, how do we become literate and think about what AI tools are good and what AI tools are bad, and how do we use this in a productive way, but not in a replacement way. There also, I think, are policies that probably will be pushed after this year, after we can get the fundamentals of the youth safety balance, is around looking at hours used in the classroom, the tools used in the classroom for efficiency. So this is, as crazy as it sounds, just the beginning of the conversations. And I think, to your point, this is why we need you at the table. Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, once again, thank you, Andrea, for this
been
wonderful
my
conversation. Please sign up so you can get your voice be heard. I have been at the Capitol more so now than ever before, and what I am hearing and saying is that they want to hear from us. Our voice does matter. This is what we can do. And so when opportunities like these do come across, you should go ahead and jump in, all right? And I think this is worthwhile to do so, to shape the future, help shape the future of what comes next with AI for us and for the nation, even the world, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
again, thank you, Andrea. Let's give her a
It's my
hand,
pleasure.
y'all, for
Thank
doing
you.
this. Thanks to OpenAI. Next up is our women's panel. My goodness, a seat at her table. We're going to talk about women, business, and politics, y'all.
There are some amazing women on that panel too.
Oh
so
yeah,
don't leave.
great. Moderated by my very own wife and board member, Carlette Porter, y'all. So get ready for